hello.
Hello, yes, welcome back to the next episode of A Conversation with Kely episode. Who knows at this point, but hey, we're actually doing this relatively early for once. We're not doing it like, on a Tuesday or a Wednesday. We're actually doing it pretty close to when the episode has aired, which is a great feeling. We don't get to do this much that often just because, I'm always working or you're always working, but for once they gave me a Sunday off, so let's go. We stand. But anyway, before we get into all of that, I am here, my lovely co-host Allie. How are you doing tonight?
I'm doing well. Just been working Thursday, Friday, and Saturday, and then
Nice.
I have tomorrow as well.
Yep.
And then my day's off. So, but yeah, besides work, just been chilling, watching stuff. And I'm very excited to talk about this episode.
I've had a pretty eventful weekend, I would say. I've been working, but then I'm also trying to watch a bunch of movies for the Sundance Film Festival. It's like the most amount I've ever watched. It's been kind of stressful, not going to lie, because the one thing I didn't know, and I don't think I told you this either. So when you press play on a movie for Sundance, right, you have 5 hours to watch it. So let's say you take a nap and you sleep for 5 hours, yeah, you just wasted the movie. So I've been really trying to be careful with that, because I was watching a movie earlier and I kind of fell asleep in the middle of it because I was tired, and thank God I woke up when I did, because I could have missed that whole movie. So I would have had to buy it again for another $25. But again, we're not here to talk about Sundance. We are here, of course, to talk about the Traitors, season 2, episode 5, the most hyped for a reality TV episode I have been in a very long time. And after this episode, I'm even more hyped to see how next week is going to go down.
I mean, I cannot wait.
My God, they are just, I've said it before, but they are just pulling out all the stops this season. Just the tension and the just strategy just really never ends up stopping here. We see probably the best example of faithfuls actually having a good idea that we've seen ever in the US, which is really good to see. And again, by the way things end, I mean, I cannot wait to see how everything is going to play out. Just in general, this was such a fantastic episode. I do have one little gripe I'll talk about, especially based on some things we've learned. But overall, I mean, what did you think of this episode?
Oh, I thought it was so good. Obviously, there's certain people who are just kind of there, don't really do much.
Yeah, I wouldn't even say they're purple necessarily. It's just they're not contributing much.
They're just not doing much, or they're just.
John's kind of vibing. It's a good day to be John Bercow. He really is just so unbothered. He went from the guy who's the meme that we can't wait to see, to basically just the guy who's just kind of there. That's
vibing. And then Shereé and Bergie are just kind of there too, but we get
Bergie gets a little more in this episode, I will say.
We get a little more, but not a lot. But definitely
Shereé,
a little more.
not so much.
Yeah, Shereé's just kind of vibing, apparently, because from what I read, from that tweet you showed me, apparently this is her in Atlanta too.
Interesting. Well, I mean, she's quite the character. So I don't really understand how she's playing the game, but if that's how she wants to play it, then by all means, I guess. But anyway, yeah, let's just get into this episode, because once again, I mean, we have a lot to talk about here, so we're just going to try to get right into it. So, of course, we start off with the Traitors turret. I mean, the thing that I think we were all just most excited to see how this was really going to go down. We do, of course, start off with last week's confrontation, and we see a bit of a fight ends up emerging between Parvati and Phaedra. It's not a huge fight, but it's definitely a little bit of tension there. Parvati does actually chime in, where I saw people saying on Twitter oh, the edit is hiding what Parvati is saying, and they were right. The edit was very much trying to hide what Parvati was saying, because they wanted us to tune in for the next one. But that's called a good cliffhanger. That's how you do it. So so Parvati says she didn't throw her under the bus, and that she was talking about Larsa and was only doing it to get Larsa out. And Phaedra says to not do it with her name in mind, and that it really pissed her off. And Parvati says that she didn't know if she was actually mad or if she was pretending. And I mean, I kind of agree with her. I didn't know if Phaedra was actually serious about it. So I actually don't think this is a bad defense from Parvati. It's I think Phaedra is doing such a good job just kind of hiding her status as a traitor. Because I mean, still 5 episodes in, she remains undetected. Nobody has even thrown her name out. Nobody suspected anything. She's really just killing it in terms of how well she is playing this game socially. I think easily she is the best socially. Say what you want strategically about Dan and Parvati, they're fantastic, but like socially, I mean, Phaedra's got this. But Parvati's,
I feel like strategy wise, it's probably Dan and Parv, but like socially, it's Phaedra.
Yeah. So Phaedra says that, oh, I'm not an actress. I don't fake it that well. I do think Phaedra was a little bit, I do think this was a bit of a bluff from Phaedra, because I do think she's trying to downplay like some things, obviously, but like, when you're trying to when you're trying to defend yourself, you're going to say things like that. So Parvati then reassures her she isn't throwing her name around or sabotaging her in any way, and she apologizes if she did. Phaedra says she accepts it. Phaedra says she believes in grace and mercy, so she will move on for a minute, but if Parvati behaves similarly later on, she will know she cannot be trusted. And I think Phaedra definitely did the right thing here by just trying to be like, okay, this is an issue, but it might not be as much of an issue as I think. So if Parv is serious, let's just move on. And then, kind of like, it's kind of like forgive, but not forget. Like, that's kind of what Phaedra's doing here. It's like, she's not going to forget the way Parvati acted here, but she is willing to forgive it if she's not going to do it again. But we'll see what happens. What do you think?
Yeah. I mean, I thought she did the right thing. At least like they apologized and everything, but like, I don't think they're ever going to like really be on the same side. But I mean, at least they kind of like talk things out a little bit, but it got a little heated.
Yeah, definitely. So Dan, meanwhile, is just like completely just silent this entire time. He can just kind of like watch the chaos happening. The only time Dan isn't taking the heat for something in this episode. This is not a great episode for Dan, like at all.
I know.
So Dan tells them he's glad they can clear the air because it's so important for them to all work together. He says that it took half a second for things to start popping off. He lit the stick of dynamite and is sitting back watching the fireworks and thinking about how he can use this to his advantage. I think Dan gives himself a little too much credit here. I don't think he caused this to happen. Yes, he planted the seed to Parvati about Phaedra, but he didn't tell Parvati to do all she did at the round table. So like, yes, he is somewhat responsible, but I don't think this is like, oh, Dan started all this chaos and now can like, it's like that meme of like someone walking away and like the fire behind them. Like, that's not really Dan right now. I wouldn't really say he's in that position. So Parvati brings up to the group about her going for Ekin-Su. They both reassure that she did really good. She says she wants to throw the ball in both their courts tonight and have them decide as a peace offering, which this is basically what we predicted was going to happen. It's like Phaedra's coming in really hot. Phaedra's really angry. Let's just let her have this murder. Let's just have her kind of decide what's going to happen. So she asked them who's going to cause confusion. It has to be someone that is skilled at playing the game. And she throws out Sandra. And I'm like, no, please not Sandra. So Parvati says she's good at the strategy. So at some point, if she has suspicion on any of them and numbers are dwindling, she'll pull the trigger on any of them. So yeah, she's very much like willing to take out Sandra here, but Dan and Parv like very adamantly like push against this. They're not really here for this. I thought they did a good job saying like, well, she's not really someone that like, is onto us necessarily. Like, she's good with us. But I think Phaedra, I think she's feeling a little bit iffy towards her now that like Sandra literally just ratted out like what the housewives are trying to do. So I think she's very like unsure how to feel about Sandra. So I like seeing some dissension in the ranks, like the traitors like not necessarily agreeing on this.
Oh yeah, me too. I love when they like bicker and like they don't exactly just agree, because it's like that's just more fun and more entertaining.
Yeah, I mean, last season, Shereé pretty much like made the call on everything, even when it wasn't necessarily her decision. It was never in the best interest of like a Christian or a Cody. But this time around, I like seeing that they are not necessarily on the same page here. They're not just always going to agree. And that causes probably the most random and not necessarily the most ideal murder here, where Phaedra brings up Tamra. And Parvati says that it would be a surprise for people. She's a loose cannon where people would be unsure where she would go. Phaedra agrees, and Dan says they need to agree about which causes more confusion between the two of them. And I want to get your opinion on this. How do you feel about her picking Tamra to murder here?
I mean, it's just definitely shocking because I mean she is close to Tamra.
Yeah.
But I mean, it also makes sense too, because like no one really suspects her, so it's very like very confusion, like a lot of confusion and speculations and just
Yeah.
like honestly, like this is like a really good move.
Yeah, this is a great move for Phaedra, especially considering that, now people are going to be suspicious of the housewives. They're going to think the housewives are sticking together. This
Mhm.
pretty much dispels of that entirely, where it's like, okay, now there's only two of us. There's nothing to really worry about. One of us is already disposed of. Like, this is really great for Phaedra. I don't think this is good for Dan or Parvati. I think they needed to push for something else to happen here. Tamra was never really coming for either of them. Tamra was very actively like going for Kevin, where I really thought Kevin was going to go in this episode. Spoilers, that's not really what happens. Yeah, I mean, I was definitely not expecting Tamra to go anytime soon. So, I mean, good on Phaedra for doing that, but I don't think it was great for Dan or Parvati. I think it's really Dan and Parvati's first real misstep of the game so far.
Oh
So,
yeah.
So then, of course, we get to the breakfast here, and very eventful breakfast for sure. There's a lot of interesting stuff that happens
Oh, it's so
at
spicy.
this point. Yes.
So the first to arrive are CT and Janelle, the latter of which is very happy to be first to breakfast. CT is unsure if that really is a good thing because now the paranoia will set in because they're the first ones there, especially with what happened last time with the poison. And he really thought it would be either of them that would be murdered.
CT just can't catch a break. He really can't.
I know
he's always catching strays like
he's
somewhere.
kind of
It's
like he's always
constant.
like the decoy.
Yeah.
CT says he doesn't trust anyone in this game, but he thinks it's right that every avenue should be explored.
Mm-hmm.
She asks him who the traitors might be, and he says he was leaning towards the housewives, and she says she thinks they're just trying to get votes together to vote someone out of the game, and there isn't a strategy behind it at all. Janelle says people keep throwing the housewives out as traitors, but they simply don't have the skill or strategy of being a mastermind for who to murder. So the next to come out are Peter and John. They all agree it's going to get much harder determining the traitors. And Peter's really feeling like there has got to be a guy in the traitors, and he's very confident it's not any of the ones sitting there. He doesn't think it's Kevin or Bergie, so his suspicion, if there has to be a guy, is Dan. Peter says this is the exact opposite of The Bachelor, where emotion is out the door, and there's no more leading with your heart. It's all about leading with your head and being 2 steps ahead. He's so focused on this game, or he's so focused in this game 24/7, his thoughts are racing and he's going from theory to theory. The next to arrive is Kevin, who they're all very happy to see, and Kevin thinks it's either going to be Sandra,
Well, yeah,
Shereé.
because Tamra's not there, so they're going to be happy to see him now.
I know. And Kevin thinks it's either going to be Sandra, Shereé, or Trishelle who is murdered.
Yeah, I mean, you thought it was going to be Trishelle, so.
That would have been interesting if it was.
Yeah, I mean, especially with how things go here. Yeah, I think things change drastically if Trishelle's not there.
Yeah.
So I think it was very good that
Bergie and Parvati are the next to arrive, and Bergie is very happy to see Peter is alive and well as he is his closest ally. And though this is a game where he can't trust anybody, he has to find people he can trust.
Yeah.
The next to arrive are Dan and Shereé, and he mentions how they need to get a shield to get today. The next to arrive is MJ and Trishelle. The next to arrive is MJ, and Trishelle follows suit shortly after. So this means it's down to Phaedra, Tamra, and Sandra.
Mm-hmm. Very unexpected few here.
I know. Just then, Phaedra and Sandra come out, which means Tamra has been murdered.
Yep, and I love the way it was done too, where it was like I thought at first it was just Phaedra that came out, but no, they both come out. It's like, oh well, Tamra's gone. So.
Sorry, I was just replying to something. We see the Traitors' deliberation where Phaedra says she loves her housewife sisters, but she thinks this will bring confusion since everyone knows she's loyal to the housewives. Tamra then reads her note that she has been murdered. She seems a bit sad, but she's happy she had this experience and got to live in this amazing castle and visit Scotland, and now it's time to go home and be with her kids and husband. She thinks this was way worse than Housewives, and she didn't realize how cutthroat it would be, and she just hopes one of the housewives isn't responsible for murdering her. Well, LOL.
Yep.
So, like, Phaedra literally just did that.
Can I also mention the moment that was so great that Evan's been saying on Twitter, where it's like they find out Tamra's been murdered, and Phaedra's like, "All right, let me get some hard-boiled eggs."
That was so funny.
It was, but I was also like, "Oh God, this is."
I don't know why I was like I wasn't actually I was kind of surprised they didn't suspect her there.
Well, I think it's just, again, a testament to how good her social game has been. I think one of the things, and I think we saw this really well from Shereé, and Phaedra's also doing it really well, is that if you're going to be a traitor, you need to like just treat it like a social game. Like that's the best way to go about it, make genuine connections with people. So even if they do suspect you as a traitor, they're always going to be like, well, you know, Phaedra just revealed this thing to me. Phaedra just talked to me about this. She's not a traitor. She wouldn't do that. You know, we saw that all last season with Shereé, and I feel like Phaedra's also implementing that so well this season. So it really does feel like to me like she's spent a lot of time watching Shereé's season, and it's just really paying off.
Yeah. Oh, definitely. They're all unsure why Tamra would be murdered, and Phaedra breaks the silence by asking if there are any boiled eggs. Oh, so good. Trishelle doesn't feel Tamra's murder says anything about anyone and gives zero evidence, so they are just moving forward and chipping away at a faithful. MJ deduces that maybe it was due to the traitors feeling undecided with who to get rid of, so they simply killed her as an easy name to pick off. Alan then comes out and says Tamra is now dead to them, and the real housewife that has lost her real house life. They will need to move on with their lives, and to ease their sorrows, he has a treat for them, something he has been waiting to share that will finally arrive at the castle later and turn this game upside down.
Yeah.
At the breakfast table, CT asks Dan how he's feeling, and Dan says he doesn't have any real assumptions. And CT asks him if he has any red strings anywhere or assumptions, and he says he doesn't. And won't be throwing out a name, and CT says he's not telling him to, but maybe a rabbit hole or avenue to explore, since one time at another they've all suspected someone, and asks if he's truly never suspected anything, and Dan says he thinks he's starting to, but doesn't want to say it.
Yeah, this is really like we see this throughout the entire episode. But like this is really something that Dan has been struggling with. I said it in episode 3. All he really needs to do is change it up, and he just really hasn't. At this point in the game, when there's, you know, not that there's what, like, I don't know, like 17, 16 people left. You can't just like be coy, you know, you can't be coy anymore. You can't be giving these like non-answers where it's like, oh, well, I need to figure it out. It's like, okay, how much time do you need? You know, like there's only so many days in this game. It's only like what, like 2 weeks. So it's like you can't just keep giving these generic answers because, and especially with how similar they are, it's just really bad for Dan. And I really think it just comes down to the fact that like he is best when he's working in a game that is a lot slower paced than this. And with the speed of the game, I think it's just really hurting him. I think that he, like I said, he just works best when he has a lot more time to like develop things, and he
like
hasn't really been able to do that.
Like he says, though, he does do his best work when his back's against the wall.
Oh, he does. And that's why, like, I'm not at all doubting the fact that he can do it. Cause I mean, it's fucking Dan Gheesling we're talking about, but I don't think it is a stretch to say, he's not doing that great.
Yeah. He just needs to, I mean, hopefully he can get through. I mean, because I just don't want Dan to go. I don't want any of the
Oh, no. I would be heartbroken.
I mean,
but
I mean, as much as they want the Traitors to go and it would be spicy, but like I want the Traitors to succeed, of course.
Oh yeah, no, especially this season, I definitely want to see the
they're-
Traitors succeed, but I also
they're
like
iconic.
seeing a season where the Faithfuls are more useful and not
Oh, yeah.
completely just like clueless.
Yeah, I mean, I don't really dislike anybody. Like the only one I'm not a huge fan of is Trishelle, but I don't dislike her like a lot. Like I don't hate her, but I don't love her. So John then takes this time to whisper to Peter and Janelle and asks if Dan has ever expressed any suspicions in private, and they all collectively agree he hasn't. Peter says he suspects CT and Parvati, but he thinks Dan's a traitor because he's doing exactly what he'd be doing if he was the one laying super low and flying under the radar, playing a really good game.
Yeah, exactly. It's like it's so obvious what he's doing at this point.
I know. So post-breakfast, Kevin talks to CT and Dan and says Janelle gave him weird traitor vibes from the beginning. So he's going to put his neck out there and put her on the banishment table. He brings up how they were sitting together and everyone was going for someone else. But then she threw out Larsa and he told her if she got it right, he'd believe she wasn't faithful. But if not, it doesn't look good.
Peter just continues to carry Kevin at this point. Like without Peter, Kevin would be like...
Oh God, Kevin is like not. Kevin is such a bad player.
Yeah, like I just love Kevin. He's been fun to watch, but my God, he is just completely just like useless in this game.
I think the two like ones that are like useless players are Kevin and MJ.
I would say Kevin and Shereé.
I mean Shereé too. MJ is just really bad.
MJ at least has like initiative, but not in the right places.
Yeah. CT agrees they have to put her on the spot and it's worth exploring. Kevin says he's been observing Janelle really closely since day one, and everything leads back to her. Every banishment, her name comes up and then goes away, so he thinks this is a perfect ploy from a traitor. Dan says he knows there's some suspicion on him, so if Janelle's name is going to get called out, he's fully using it to his advantage to win this game as a traitor.
Yeah, and I mean, I get why Dan wants to do this and things like that. But I think that him pushing Janelle is definitely the right move. But I do think he's like very short-sighted in this episode, not recognizing what he needs to do. What he needs to do is throw out a name that's not Janelle. Like that's what he needs to do, especially with how things go. You need to throw out a different name because it just looks suspicious that, oh, now you're, accusing the person that's coming after you, Like, not to spoil too much, but if he fucking throws out Peter as a traitor next week, that's going to be really fucking bad.
Oh, God. Who, Kevin?
No, Dan.
Oh, well.
Like, if we get to the round table and the person he throws out is Peter, like, I can't even imagine.
That would be very interesting.
It'd be terrible is what it would be.
I mean, it makes sense, too, because he is one of the main people throwing out his name.
No, it doesn't.
But it'd be interesting.
No, I see. I don't think it actually does make sense to go for the person that's throwing out your name. I think it makes sense to go with someone completely random because you're trying to play the game as a faithful. If you're coming at me like when I'm a traitor and I'm and I'm throwing your name out, it's like, well, why weren't you saying Ali's name before she was throwing your name out? And you're just saying it now. Like it just feels kind of suspicious. So I think that's really his problem here is that he needed to go a completely different avenue. And he didn't. So
Trishelle talks to Janelle and Bergie and says they have to get it right. And Janelle says there's one that is so obvious and mentions Dan and that he hasn't given anything. And they can't let him slip by without saying a name. And Trishelle says she thinks that he will soon. And Bergie asks if he's going to get murdered before he says a name.
Yeah. I mean, Bergie is, again, just really on to Dan in this episode. And I'm kind of here for it because Bergie, like I said, has been kind of quiet. And here he, like, really kind of, like, emerges into, like, kind of a king, not going to lie.
Yeah, he was funny. Janelle says she does suspect Dan as a traitor. She can see through all the moves he's doing that he used to do in Big Brother that she totally knows about. In the beginning of the game, he plays possum, but then springs into action when the numbers are in his favor. And he starts tacking, and he's the most devious Big Brother player she's ever played with.
Yeah, I mean, this is the thing we said with Janelle from the beginning is, like, she's going to know his game more than anyone else, and she can use that whenever she needs to, and she does. And I think this, what she's doing here is fine. What she does a little bit later, not so much, but this is fine. Like, this is definitely the way to go about it.
Oh, yeah. Janelle can just be very messy.
Yeah. But I think here, like, this makes sense. Like, this is the correct move.
Oh, yeah. Dan tells Janelle and John they are the two people he feels comfortable with, and he tells them every day he's on someone, and every day he's getting one piece that confirms that he's not there yet, but it's close.
This really should have cost Dan the game by him doing this, because he says he trusts Janelle, and then he does something at the round table that's like the complete opposite of that. So it's just kind of like inconsistent.
Oh, yeah, definitely. Dan says he really respects Janelle as someone who's really dangerous in this game, so he's got to make sure he's right there with her, because if the wolves are closer to him, they're much easier to stab in the back. Janelle says as a group they are getting a traitor tonight, and it's happening. And then Janelle says she knows Dan has lied to her before, but fool her once, shame on him. Fool her twice, shame on her.
Yeah, so, I mean, at this point, it's like it's pretty clear Dan or Janelle is going. It really just comes down to who it's going to be. And with that said, let's get into this mission, because listen, like I've talked before, I'm not a big fan of a lot of these missions. And I really liked last week's with just like how integral it was to the game. And once again here, I thought they found a way to change it up and make it a little bit more exciting. I mean, if it wasn't for the mission going the way it does, this episode is not nearly, and next week's especially, is not going to be nearly as spicy as it was without the mission playing out the way it does. So,
oh yeah, this mission is so funny too.
Yeah. Oh yeah, very funny comp. I will get into that. But for today's mission, it's all about communication, something they can all do better at, which, yeah, pretty much. So they're going to be split up into two groups. 6 of them are going to be playing in the grounds outside. The rest of them will be playing inside the castle. But before they realize, they must know that only the players that choose to play outside can win a shield. Peter feels he absolutely needs a shield today, as he has a couple of cards to play, maybe, but ultimately a shield would relieve so much stress. And I don't know if I said before, but like, Peter is so good at this game. Like, generally, I'm very impressed by what he ends up doing here. If he's able to, I mean, he already is able, but like, he's generally one of the only faithfuls I've seen in these 2 seasons that like knows how to be a faithful and knows what he needs to do in order to, benefit himself. I think he plays really well here, and I'm generally really just blown away by how he's playing. So I don't know too much. I know people don't like him much on The Bachelor, and I don't know much about that. I know he I think he proposed to a girl and then went to another girl, and then he went to a different girl. I don't know. It's a whole mess, but like on the Traitors, he's kind of killing it. So yeah. The 6 to play outside then raise their hands. There's a bit of chaos here. We see John, Peter, Kevin, Trishelle, Janelle, and Shereé raise their hands. And MJ, as she typically does, doesn't agree with this. She thinks that some of them have gotten it wrong before. Meanwhile, she has been on the chopping block and no one has offered her one. Trishelle says that she was one of the last people to ever get a shield and has never gone for one. MJ feels they need to be a little bit more selfless for the opportunity. Janelle says she's only getting closer to getting a traitor, so she absolutely needs a shield, even though she's gotten 4 of them at this point. Dan and CT also say that they want one, but are willing to step out. So after a little bit of fighting, it's agreed the 6 that raise their hands are going to be Peter, Janelle, Trishelle, Bergie, Kevin, and Shereé. John's the only person who ends up not being chosen for this, even though he was going to. I don't really know what happened there, but yeah, that's what ends up happening with that. So Dan says he isn't going to go for a shield because they aren't that important to him. Let's get some money so he can take it all in the end. This is interesting because just 2 episodes ago, Dan was like, well, I need to get a shield to ensure that I'm a faithful and things like that. But I guess that's not a priority anymore. So
I know.
Sandra's a bit disappointed that there aren't shields in the house for people that hate to run like her and Phaedra. So then we get to the mission. And yeah, I mean, this was honestly absolutely hysterical. I was dying at this mission because basically they're going to be working as a group, but instead they're going to be working in pairs. So they're going to need to identify bird calls that they hear in the grounds outside and match them with replica modern birds scattered inside the castle. Once the castle crew has identified it, it's going to, once they've identified it, they will bring it to him. They will only get one chance per bird call. They will each get a map to locate the bird areas. Marked on each map is the location of the rare shield bird. Any pair that takes time out from the mission to find out and correctly identify it are going to win 2 shields for both players' protection from murder tonight. If they're able to properly identify each bird call, they will, of course, win an additional 15K to their prize pot. So Kevin says getting into this mission, he will need a shield because tonight he is putting his neck out on the line and putting the name out for a traitor. He really thinks he's doing something this episode. He really thinks like, oh, this is my moment. This is where I'm going to step up. People are going to take me seriously. It's like, Kevin, you're trying, but like not in the right places.
Kevin's vibe is just like, he thinks he's running the game, but he's not.
Yeah, that's like the best way to sum it up. It's like he constantly thinks he has like a handle of what's going on. He just doesn't. He really doesn't. So the pairs in the outside group are Trishelle, Bergie, Shereé, and Kevin, and Janelle and Peter. Keep in mind of all the pairs I just said, except Shereé and Kevin, that one doesn't really end up playing that big of a role in this episode, but the other 2 pairs, very much so. So there's this really funny moment where Dan says that one of the bird calls sounds like Janelle when she can't get a shield. I thought that was really funny.
Honestly, I mean, he's not wrong.
Oh, yeah. Kevin and Shereé are attempting to get a shield, but they realize that they aren't good at reading maps, so they end up just going to the first birdhouse. I mean, it kind of tracks. Their reads aren't good in the game, and they're also not good at reading maps, so it just kind of makes sense. So Peter then tells Janelle, and this is really where we get to the exciting stuff here, because Peter has like kind of like a big brain moment here where it's like, listen, I've said before that I think Peter's one of the better faithfuls. This generally was like amazing. Like I thought this was such an interesting idea, because he tells Janelle that everyone that isn't with them, whether it's the faithfuls or the traitors, are going to assume that they went for the shield because Janelle's there, and Janelle typically goes for the shield. Peter also has gotten the shield before, so they shouldn't get it just because they expect them to. So they shouldn't. So when they get it, they maximize their coverage of protection. And if they waste the murder, that would be the biggest one of the game so far. And yeah, I mean, this is a genius move, because it's like, the fact that they're not revealing who gets the shield and things like that really changes things up considerably. You can just lie and say, oh, well, I got the shield. I'm free. And then if the traitors try to kill the person that actually did get the shield, it completely exposes them. And I mean, Peter just thought this out so well. I didn't really know if they were going to go through with this, but I mean, I thought this was such a great idea. What did you think of this plan that Peter proposes?
Oh, I thought it was really great. It was honestly like a pretty genius and brilliant move, just because so they think it's them, but it's actually not.
Yeah.
Like, I just think it's really cool.
Yeah, it was really, really cool the way he pulled this off. But ultimately, So ultimately, after a lot of reciting of some very hilarious bird calls, which, like I said, just very funny comp all around. I love just seeing them just like going like constantly. It was great. It was great. You just see all these like reality TV legends just literally just making a fool out of themselves. It's
I know.
So they are able to acquire an extra 10K to their prize pot. This, of course, brings the total to $75,500. The shield bird has also been found, where Peter and Janelle do decide to not reveal any information in an effort to keep everyone safe. Dan feels this is very difficult for the traitors to pick someone to murder, but Janelle is being selfish, which will help in this game because no one likes a selfish faithful and can easily get her in trouble. So he's like gung-ho about going for Janelle at this point. So right after the mission is when things get even more exciting. We see Trishelle pulls Bergie and Peter aside. And, Janelle talked a bit about in the last episode that like the groups that were forming, she talked about this middle group a bit. We didn't spend a lot of time on it, But it really does seem like this middle group is the one to worry about. Like, this is the most dangerous group of them all. And it makes sense because nobody in this group thinks that they're a traitor. They have 100% trust in each other. So they're going to be open and honest with each other, and they're not going to be as honest with other people that they suspect are traitors. So yeah, I mean, this is the group to definitely worry about. Because basically Trishelle says to not say any information to anyone about the mission because Kevin and Shereé will likely be pressing everyone about who got the shield. Trishelle then reveals to CT that Kevin and Shereé don't have the shield. They do. So yes, Trishelle and Bergie have the shield. They are safe from the next murder, and so good for Bergie. Like, so good for Bergie. Because like I said, I think prior to this, Bergie was just kind of irrelevant. I wasn't really getting much of anything from him, but like, this really puts him in an incredible spot. And I'm very excited to see what he does from this point forward. So Peter says he's developed some really good rapport with Trishelle and Bergie. He thinks that Bergie is a very good next target for murder. So his plan is a trap. He's hoping the traitors are going to walk right into it. He's telling a little white lie to suspects he has of being traitors, that him and Janelle have the shields. Even if they don't, hoping they believe him, so they will instead take out Bergie or Trishelle. They walk in the trap, the murder gets blocked, and a ton of information will get revealed, and he really feels good if this plan works. And like I said, yeah, this is like the best plan I've seen any faithful have in both seasons we've covered of the Traitors. Like, this is such a great idea, especially if you're suspicious of someone. Like, this confirms it. There's no way they can hide it at that point. It's like, okay, I know you're a traitor. Like, you don't even need to tell me because I know who you just tried to murder. So he goes right to Dan here, and he tells him that he and Janelle got the shield. He tells Parvati the same thing. So he's incredibly suspicious of both Dan and Parvati at this point. Janelle then talks to MJ, Bergie, Kevin, and John that they all need to talk collectively as a group about who is a traitor, and very much giving vibes of Larsa at this point. This is just not great what Janelle is doing, trying to like rally the troops here. She says she thinks yesterday was a distraction, and MJ brings up how Dan isn't giving her anything. And so, you know, you would think MJ, okay, she's just going to vote Dan out. That's probably what she's going to do. But we'll get into that in a little bit. So Janelle agrees that it's so obvious he's a traitor. Kevin asks why it would be him since he hasn't done anything. I can't with Kevin. I just
don't know.
Like, that is the dumbest reasoning for not believing someone's a traitor. Oh, well, he hasn't done anything. That's exactly why he's a traitor. He hasn't said anything. Like, my God, Kevin says the fact that Janelle has been behind every banishment. He thinks Janelle is a perfect traitor, and if not, she's a very sloppy faithful. She's not the only one that's sloppy, but yeah. And getting rid of her will make room for more logical choices for all of them to get the real traitors. Keep in mind, this is Kevin saying something about logical choices, even though literally none of his banishments have made any sense. None of what he's done in this game has worked. So again, just... my God, Kevin, just like hearing Kevin or Shereé speak, it just makes you lose brain cells at this point.
I know. They just are not good at the game.
Yeah, they're really not. So Janelle says to all of them that if she's throwing out ideas, that means that she's been a faithful. So someone that's a traitor is never going to try as hard. And I agree with her on this. It's like, if you are worried that you're going to get murdered, you're not going to hold back. You're going to say the names. You're going to make sure that that person goes. If you're a traitor, it's a lot easier for you to play at that point because the fact that you have that protection. I don't necessarily agree that it's easier for a traitor to play, but a traitor doesn't have to go as hard in the banishments because they know that their other traitors are going to vote for them. They know they're going to be fine. So she says that the traitors don't have to do anything except sit back, and they all just need to agree on someone. Kevin says the last time they all did this last night, they went for Larsa and now are going for Dan, and he doesn't feel good about it. And she says that she didn't say that they had to. Even though she literally just said, let's go for Dan. But yes. So NJ says that she's suspected Dan since he's been super quiet. And again, this is one of the people that I thought it's a no-brainer. MJ's voting Dan. She's been suspicious of him since episode 3. There's no way she's going to do anything to fuck this up.
Yeah, like I literally thought she was going to just vote him.
But then she says that Janelle has gotten her hands dirty and has been pretty cutthroat when she accuses other people. So it could implicate that she is a traitor. First of all, MJ has no room to speak about being cutthroat. She has voted rogue almost every single time. She has
MJ's
been
so
very
bad
direct with,
as
like,
well.
what she's wanted to do. This is like, I don't know what she was thinking here, but she goes to Shereé, Sandra, and Dan. Super random group of people, by the way. I don't know why she specifically chose this 3. But she says they all need to go somewhere that has a locked door. So she finds it, and then she tries to do what Sandra did last week, but it made sense for Sandra to do that. It does not make any sense for MJ to do this. Like I said, she's been suspicious of Dan from the beginning. You can get him out here. You get a traitor out. This incentivizes that, like, I'm not just like voting my own way. I know what I'm talking about. Like, this could have been really good for MJ. But she like basically ruins any chance of it happening by telling Dan that Janelle is gunning for him hard. He asked for what reason, which really isn't doing much of anything. He's already going to push Janelle anyway. Now this is just further incentivizing him to do it. So this is like the definition of, like, she thought she did something and she didn't.
Yeah, literally.
So she says she's trying to get them all to vote for him because he isn't giving his opinion and always saying it. He says because he generally doesn't know. And she says it means the clock is ticking. He mentions to her this is the same thing that happened to Larsa last time. And MJ says that Janelle is so convinced that she has them and it smells like shit to her. So again, I mean, I just don't know what MJ is doing at this point. I really just don't know. So Dan says this is his first time getting heat in this game from someone who is very dangerous and capable of him getting banished tonight. So he has to try to capitalize on using his information to steer votes away from him. So then he does, probably the most logical thing he could and goes to Parvati, tells her that Janelle is coming for him. And once he went to Parvati, I'm like, okay, it's a done deal. Janelle's going. Like, there's no saving her at this point. Because there's no reason for Phaedra to vote opposite of Dan and Parv, especially after the, disagreement they just had. It makes sense for them to vote together. So I felt like it's pretty much solidified that, like, yeah, Janelle's going here. So she says they have to take her out and she doesn't understand how that happened. He says it's because he doesn't say any names. And it's like, yeah, that's exactly the issue. So a lot of interesting stuff, but let's get to this roundtable because there's a lot to talk about with this one.
Oh, it's so good.
Oh yeah.
So Alan tells us that tonight's roundtable is like no other, as this game started with one player missing, and we get flashback to him telling all of them there is only 21 of them for now.
We like completely overlooked that, but like, yeah, he did tell them this in like the first episode, but I somehow I just didn't catch that. But yeah, he did say 21 of you for now.
I know. So now the 22nd player is finally here to play. Someone is about to hit the round table like a Highland wrecking ball. We see a car pull up and someone steps into the mansion, opens an envelope, and it is Kate Chastain from season 1. And who asks if we missed her?
Yeah, which, yes, the answer is yes. We very much did miss you, Kate. Kate is reality TV gold. We loved her last season. Not great at the game. I do think already...
She's not a good player, but she's very entertaining.
Well, I do think already she's doing a little bit better with, like, she's asking the right questions. She's suspicious of the right people. I think her playing the game last season, she definitely is going to have a leg up on some of the other players. But the one thing I do want to talk about here is that I thought for the longest time that Kate was just here to like replace somebody that left. Like that's what happened. Like they wanted to get her. She was like an alt or something. And then they brought her in. But it seems like this is something that they had in the works from the beginning of the season. What do you think of this twist of like her just randomly entering at like, final, whatever it is?
I mean, I think it's pretty fun. Like it's very spicy. I mean, and also like it makes sense too because of like how Deontay left.
Well, that's why I thought she was joining, but I think if Deontay even was still there, I think this still would have happened, at least from what Alan said.
Yeah, so I mean, it's definitely a very interesting twist, though.
Yeah. I honestly don't have much of an issue with this. If this was any other show, I would be like, no, this isn't fair. This is happening too late. This person didn't get a chance to play the whole game. In a game like this, though, it's like, this game really is just about catching the traitors. And, if you're the first to do it, then, and you're faithful, then you're fine. Her being a traitor later in the game, I don't think, gives her any sort of advantage that Dan, Phaedra, and Parvati didn't have. I don't think it gives Dan, Phaedra, and Parvati any sort of advantage. Like, I think this is honestly fine. I don't really have much of an issue with this at all. It keeps the game exciting. It keeps it unpredictable. And I feel like Kate is like, if you're going to bring somebody back from last season, Kate's like the perfect choice to get.
Oh, yeah, definitely. Because, like, she was always just the scapegoat.
Oh, yeah. She was a scapegoat. She was always just like really messy. Everyone was just always thinking that she was a traitor. So I'm really excited to see how she plays on this season.
Oh, me too.
If only we could have drafted her.
I know. She opens the envelope and she's told she is faithful. She's a little disappointed she's not a traitor this time because she really wanted to see the turret and a special code, and also would like the power to get rid of people she doesn't like. She's just here to have a good time and fuck shit up.
I was really hoping that she would be a traitor. I thought that would have been really spicy if that would have happened. But honestly, like I'm good with the 3 we have right now. It's fine. It's fine.
Oh, I love the traitors we have.
And I also feel like Kate just like fits so well into this cast. Like with the cast this messy, she fits in so well.
Like she's like, I don't think she even really like cares who she works with. She's just there to like fuck you up.
No, I think she's generally just, I think literally what happened, I can already see this. Alan Cumming goes to her. He's like, do you want to create chaos? Do you want to be like as just like insane as possible? Then join this season, but you're going to join like halfway through. And she was like, oh, hell yeah, I'm here for this. So I feel I feel like she's generally just here to like cause chaos, just be as messy as possible, ask the questions that nobody else is asking. And honestly, like I said, if there's anyone from last season to fulfill that role, I'm glad it's Kate.
That gives like Brian vibes when we in Applause season 2.
Basically,
where all he did was cause chaos.
I mean, is she gonna pull out a legacy advantage? Is that gonna happen? Is she gonna say she hosts a podcast with like John and Kevin and CT's like a guest on it? Is that gonna happen?
That'd be so funny. So Dan says coming into this roundtable, he doesn't feel good at all. Although he is targeted as a traitor, he isn't out of this thing, and he does his best work when his back is against the wall, and he has a few tricks up his sleeve now. By
the way, shout out to Brian DeLeon. We love you.
Yes, King.
I don't know if he's watching, but shout out. Worth noting.
Janelle says she knows Dan is a traitor. He is 100% the best big BB player she's ever played with, but she is here to win, so he's got it coming.
Yep. And I think at this point, like Janelle's saying like all the right things. Like she's like, you know, I know Dan better than most people. I know how he's playing the game. I know what we need to be worried about. Like, you know, we know how he's going to be down the line. Like at this point, I think Janelle is doing fine in the roundtable. We'll talk about what happens later, but at this point, I think she's fine.
Yeah, same. So before everyone deliberates, Alan tells them this is a roundtable they will truly never forget, and then reveals an extra chair and that there's a new guest in the castle.
Ugh, I love the suspense. I love the way he did. He just places the chair there, gets all of them thinking, what the hell's gonna happen?
Literally, like
back or something.
I'm like obsessed with the editing of the show because it's so like suspenseful, so intense, and then like the Hunger Games feel to it. Like, oh, I love it.
Yeah, this is what happens when you take your show seriously, BBUS. Take notes.
Oh yeah, literally. So he then brings out Kate. He also reveals she is either a faithful or traitor, and she will also have a vote at this roundtable. So they need to make their arguments convincing.
The fact that she can just vote literally wherever is insane. But we also need to talk about the fact that Kate literally could have gone out here, like if they wanted to. This could have literally been a high buy. That's literally what this could have been.
Could you imagine? That would be so sad, though.
I feel like if this cast wasn't as like at each other's throats as they were, like if this was season 1, Kate just goes here. Like that's what happens. Oh, Kate just goes here. Like there's no question about it. With this cast though, not happening. There's drama going on. So I feel like she's honestly coming into like the perfect time because like there's gonna be all this chaos and like none of it's gonna affect her at all.
Oh yeah, definitely. So Kate says she's sure the players have a preconceived notion about her, either that she's a bitchy person or a wild, unpredictable person, and all those things are true. Coming into the game late, they've already been playing the game bonds that have been formed, or playing the game bonds have been formed, and she's just wondering how much they will hate her on a scale of 1 to 10.
We love her self-awareness. We really do.
It's so good. Kate asks him to fill her on in who they hate, and Kevin says he wants to state his case without being interrupted because this group has a tendency to talk over each other
Oh
and
boy, do they ever.
interrupt without listening. I mean, that I can agree with him.
Yeah, it's like constant.
Mhm. He then puts Janelle's name on the table and says she's had a pattern of bringing up names and they've been banished, and it's always a morning discussion of Janelle being a traitor. And then somehow it turns out she is able to rally up people in the evening to shift onto another person. He mentions that Ekin-Su was very adamant about her as well, so he just wants to bring it to the table.
And again, Kevin really thinks like, oh, this is my moment. This is where like we're gonna catch a traitor. Things are gonna turn around for me. It's like, one, people already have latched onto this, so like this is not new information. Two, it's the wrong information. So it's just like
Like, okay.
you just feel secondhand embarrassment. You really do, because it's like Kevin thinks he's doing something and he's gonna be like, oh fuck, why did I just vote that way?
He's so like ditzy.
Yeah, he really is. He really is.
Janelle says she isn't a mastermind like he thinks she is. Yeah, she's been seriously wrong in this game, but isn't a traitor. And Bergie says if he was a traitor, he wouldn't be throwing out names like Janelle was, because if she's throwing out names like that and always incorrect, people would want to banish her, just like the scenario right here. And she creates a lot of chaos, which the traitors like, and that's why she's still here.
Yeah, I mean, Bergie sums it up perfectly here. It's like, listen, Janelle's been throwing out names left and right. She has not stayed quiet at all. It doesn't make sense for her to be a traitor, because a traitor would not play this messy. So
Kate asks Janelle who she thinks are traitors, and Janelle brings up Dan and CT, saying he is acting so strange, either working with a traitor or as one, and also brings up Sandra as one.
this is where she completely just...
Literally, she fucked herself bringing up Sandra and CT.
Yeah. The one thing we do have to mention, though, because it was not in the episode, and it kind of pisses me off that it wasn't, is that apparently she also called out Parvati here. She knew that Parvati was a traitor, but like didn't say it. And then Parvati said that Janelle was playing like Shereé last season, and they got into a whole fight, and Bergie jumped in as well. I don't know how they can do it, but if they can somehow give us an extended version of this roundtable in particular,
Please.
just make it happen, because I need to see that confrontation play out.
Release it on YouTube.
Especially with what we got, like, it was great, but knowing that, it's like, oh my God, this is literally an all-timer.
Oh, please. I want to see it.
Yeah, like, I don't know why... I always say this to streaming services. I don't know why they even bother editing certain things out, because it's not like they have to like end it at a certain time. They have as much time as you need. The episode's like 59 minutes. You know, adding like an extra minute or two like isn't really going to do you any harm. If anything, it's just like giving us the most accurate portrayal of events. So I would have really loved to see that happen. I really do think, generally, this is my opinion, I think Parvati wins this game with Phaedra. I think that's what happens. And I think they're trying to hype her up and just show how good she is at being a traitor, that they don't want to show that actually a lot of people are suspicious of her. And I think that's probably why they're doing that. I could be completely wrong, but just considering that they didn't show that, and again, it had to do with Parvati, and there's been a lot of things we've heard about Parvati's game from like people who have been, you know, banished or murdered. I don't think Parvati's playing as good as we think she is, and I think the show just hasn't really shown that.
Yeah, I want to see more for sure, because like people are definitely sus of Parvati, but like I want to see more of that.
Right. Yeah. I feel like the show is really trying to like prop it up, where it's like, oh, Parvati's doing such a great job, when really it's only Phaedra that's like completely undetected. So,
yeah.
You know,
Sandra says it's weird to her that all these days they've always been in sync, and then today she's coming in here thinking it's between her and Dan and feels it's a load of crap. She's given Janelle the benefit of the doubt, but she thinks she's a traitor.
I mean, yeah, when you're throwing her name out, like, what are you supposed to think at that point?
CT says they've been here. He's done everything she's asked for. Now, as soon as he gets some heat on him, she's going to throw him under the bus.
Yeah, I feel like CT is just like a default at this point. Like, oh, you don't know who to throw out, just throw out CT. Like, literally everyone's done it.
Yeah, literally, like poor CT.
Yeah.
John says at this stage, Janelle does have a tremendous ability and can see the others around her, and without boasting, she can make an assessment that she is well placed to succeed, and he doesn't hold that against her. And Kevin asks him who he thinks it is, and John says he told him last night he thought he was a traitor and still thinks his conduct is from someone who shifts from one persona to another, whereas Janelle is consistent in her manner, and he has found him inconsistent.
Again,
I will
I
say,
said it before. What?
I just think John is like so like he's so well spoken, but he's like so British.
Oh, I feel like John, just every time I hear him, I feel like he's giving like an address to like the nation or something. Like
I
he's
know.
like
He's
like it's
he's about to give a speech for the House of Commons.
he speaks so formally for no reason at these roundtables, and it's so funny to watch. I love it.
Like it's not really like game at all. It's just like
No, you literally you would think he's talking about like treachery or something going on. Like it's like something much more serious than it is, and it's just great. It's just great. Like generally TV gold. Get John Bercow on everything.
Please. He's like he talks like he's about to run for prime minister.
I mean, he did run for prime minister.
I mean, yeah, but like again.
Yeah. Yeah, this is really just his campaign. He knows this is an election year, and even though it might not be, I don't know if it is for England as well, like he's trying to kind of, he's kind of trying to use this as like promo. That's really what the twist is here. He's not here to win the game. He's just here to campaign.
I just want him to make it far just because he's an icon.
Even though it makes no fucking sense if he does try to run, because he's only was in office until 2019. But I guess 5 years later he's coming back.
Oh yeah. So Kevin says he thinks there is a hypocrisy that he was judging him, and Kate immediately starts asking someone else what his name is, and Kevin asks and if she can listen, and he says she realizes he thinks Janelle is a traitor, and he says she isn't listening. He's talking to John right now. He didn't want to be accused for being so good at this game because he's a politician, and he's accusing him now that he's an actor that he has to be one.
First of all, there is no reason for Kevin to be upset with Kate here. Kate literally just came in. She knows absolutely nobody. Obviously, she's just going to be asking people like, wait, who's speaking right now? What's going on? Like this was so stupid.
It's so funny. Like it's so ridiculous.
But yeah, like Kevin literally just fights with anybody. Like that's
literally. He just gets he's such a villain.
Yeah, you could just the thing is, I don't think he's trying to be. I think he's just really bad at this game. You could be looking down for a second, and Kevin's like, "Why are you looking down?"
And I remember when he called MJ annoying.
Yeah, like it's not great.
And then
like I feel like Tamra's gone. Now it's gonna be Kate versus Kevin, and I'm kind of.
And then Tamra thought he's annoying.
Yeah, and I feel like Kate's not gonna be a fan of him either after this. So
Same.
I'm kind of here if we get a Kevin rivalry.
Kate and Tamra are very similar, like very blunt.
No, yeah, definitely.
Kate asks if there are any.
Tamra left, and now Kate's here.
I know. Kate asks if there are any other names that anyone's thinking of, and Peter says he hates saying it because they're close, but there's got to be at least one guy in the Traitors, and if he looks at all the guys that are left, he thinks Dan has for sure contributed the least, and that is kind of a red flag for him.
He's not wrong.
Yeah.
Because Dan is saying literally nothing at this round table at this point.
I know. Dan tells Kate he knows she doesn't know him, but he likes to see evidence and reasons why, and she mentions how he wins everything, and he says he doesn't take it personal, so he wants to hear the reasons why Janelle thinks he is one. And she mentions how he gives her nothing when he asks who he thinks is a traitor. And he says that is a great question. The way he plays this game is how he played Big Brother, where he picks who the traitors are. And she says he's done nothing, just sit back and does nothing and isn't acting like a faithful.
Yeah, and to be fair, listen, I love Dan. This is a horrible answer. Like, generally, this is a terrible answer. I generally don't credit him for staying here. I really just blame Janelle for throwing people under the bus that she didn't need to, because Dan does not do himself any favors at this roundtable. If anything, he just makes himself look more suspicious.
I know. Trishelle says she thinks they've all stuck their necks out there. Her only issue with Dan is that he doesn't talk game with anyone or throw out names, so he's not helping. Dan says he will never say people he thinks are 100% faithful because it puts a target on them for the traitors who are listening. Janelle says she has the biggest target here, and that is why she talks too much. She's fucking loud and annoying, and says she was wrong, but she's a faithful. And she asks Dan who he thinks is a traitor. And Peter asks him to give one name, and Dan says Janelle, and says he has been blinded by his friendship with her, and thinks that he has an issue with is they can't pin all these banishments on one person, but she's led the charge up more than anyone else. He's taken 2 or 3 shots and missed, and he shouldn't have done that, and that's his fault, and he can't trust her anymore, and he can't move forward with her in this game.
Yeah, I mean, in my opinion, I think this was not the ideal move for him. I think he needed to throw out a different name that wasn't Janelle. I think that was like, yes, her name is out there at that point. Like, she's coming for you. It's between the two of you. But I think we need to say to Peter is like, I'm going to pull you aside after this and I'll tell you what the name is. And then he can just kind of go from there. I think that would have been much better than him saying Janelle, the person that's coming for him. It just kind of looks more suspicious that way. So,
Yeah.
not a great showing for Dan. Really not.
He should have just threw out with one of the housewives.
Yeah, honestly. Which there's only 2 of them.
I know, that's true. It's crazy.
I mean, MJ's basically like housewife adjacent, but you know.
So Alan then tells them the time for talking is now over. Dan says he knew Janelle was going to come after him, but he didn't know she'd come after him with everything she had and not leaving anything off the table, and he knows he's in a lot of trouble.
Yep.
Janelle says he needs to not poke the bear. His name is on the chopping block. The bear! Yeah, Dan Gheesling's gonna go on the bear.
I mean, it wouldn't be the weirdest thing. Fucking Dr. Will was on the book of Boba Fett, so like, it's not the weirdest thing in the world. I still don't know how that happened, but you know, I'm not ruling it out. CT's in a random movie, so like it's possible.
True. Kate says she loves a round table, the communication, the drama, and talking shit.
Yep.
She's just so funny.
That's great. Especially when her name's not out there for once. She can kind of just like sit back.
I know.
It's like not this is like a new experience for Kate. It's like, oh, I'm not the person that's getting votes here.
Mm-hmm. It's then time for all the players to reveal their votes.
And again, messy as hell, as usual.
It's messy so messy. So MJ starts off and she voted for Janelle because she felt the red flags were just so crazy to avoid, and she had to go with that.
Yeah, this is terrible for MJ. If I'm a faithful at this point, I'm on to MJ because it's like, okay, you've been saying Dan's name this entire time. Why are you not saying Dan's name now? Why are you now thinking it's Janelle? Like, why are you suddenly switching it up? Like, this just doesn't make any sense. And I just feel like MJ is just actively hurting herself here. I definitely think she's going to get voted out of one of these next banishments.
Oh, yeah. Just because she's just like, oh, she's kind of useless as a player.
Yeah, she really is. She really is. And I think that she really could have shown that, like, when she needs to stick her neck out for the faithful, she does. But by voting for Janelle here, it just actively, like, tanks her game.
Oh, yeah. Phaedra goes next and says tonight was probably one of the hardest votes because she does love Janelle, but unfortunately tonight she did vote for her and hopes they can still be friends.
Yeah, I mean, makes sense. She has to vote with the traitors here.
Mm-hmm. Sandra is next, and she went with Janelle, saying she thinks she was the last faithful recruited, and she thinks that's why she changed up on them, and that's why she thinks he's a traitor. And Janelle says she's speaking like one, and then tells her to drink that water and not look so nervous, and they exchange insults. They're both traitors and tell each other to fuck off. That was the funniest fight.
Genuinely, like, top tier. Like, a legendary fight.
They just kept saying, "You're a fucking traitor. No, you are," and then fuck off.
It was so good. Like, just
so
the fact that Janelle and Sandra just going back and forth. Ugh. It's amazing.
No, it's just so funny. That's like such a reality kind of like fight.
Oh, yeah. I love when she's like, yeah, drink that. She's like, yeah, drink that water.
So good. Honestly, that fight gives like Real Housewives vibes.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. I think they've been in that. I think they've been with some of these housewives for too long. They're kind of turning into them.
Peter is next and he went with Dan, obviously. John is next and with sadness, he went with Dan. Janelle's next and obviously voted for Dan, saying he's the most strategic player in Big Brother history and has the chops to be a traitor.
Which is why he is.
Mm-hmm. Parvati is next, and she went with Janelle since in previous banishments, she was so certain about who is a traitor and faithful, and she was so off, so she thinks they are being guided in the wrong direction by someone who knows things and that they don't.
Yeah, now I've seen people say they think Parvati is gonna betray Dan here, and my answer to that is that if she was gonna betray Dan, it would have been this episode. So I feel like she's not gonna do that. I just
I
don't
don't
see it.
think they would turn on each other.
Because I've also heard, like, and you can obviously vouch for her because you've seen her more on shows. Like, Parvati's not a person to turn on her allies. Like, she doesn't do that typically. Like, if she's close with someone and they're like her number one, she doesn't turn on them.
Yeah, exactly. Kevin goes next and he voted for Janelle. Trishelle is next and she voted for Dan. Dan is next and he voted for Janelle and says she's either a traitor or a faithful he can't trust anymore and assures her it's nothing personal. And then CT is next and he voted for Janelle saying you can't trust her.
I mean, yeah,
Shereé,
again, throwing out CT's name for no reason.
You know. Shereé is next and she voted for Janelle saying if she is a faithful, she's just not a trustworthy one.
Sure. Yeah, whatever.
Sure.
You literally just said, oh, she might be a faithful. Don't vote for her. If you think she's a faithful, don't vote for her. What are you doing?
She's so bad.
Shereé's literally just vibing. Like, she's just like, I'm just going to pick the name that feels better.
She's just like, I'm just going to vote whoever I feel like it.
Yeah.
It's like she just
and I
threw
feel like generally, I feel like she's making it to the end. I really do.
Really, what if she just threw a random vote on like a Peter?
Well, the thing with Shereé is that think about it. She's so useless to the faithfuls, but she also is never going to be a threat for the traitors because she's always going to vote incorrectly. She's never going to give the faith. She's never going to vote the way the faithfuls want her to. She's literally like the Quentin of this season. Hopefully doesn't act like Quentin by the end of the season.
Oh,
hopefully
God.
not. But she's very much like Quentin in the sense where she just consistently has the wrong read. Anytime she contributes anything, it's incorrect. So yeah, I mean, I would say I think Kevin's more like Quentin with how vocal he is. But Shereé is not good at this game at all. But I feel like that's why she's probably making it to the end because she's not a threat.
I can see that.
And also probably the person that Phaedra kind of needs the most. Or yeah, honestly, I think that she is very like, well, Phaedra doesn't need her. I think Shereé very much needs Phaedra. And again, I think as long as Phaedra's in that position, like she's gonna be fine.
Bergie is next and he voted for Dan, saying he found it absolutely incredible that Janelle is his number one and that all he's come up with this whole time and he finds it incredibly suspicious.
No, literally, this is what I'm saying. Like, it doesn't make sense to go for Janelle when he's been tight with her.
Yeah, definitely.
At least in their eyes.
Kate is last to vote and says one thing she came up with from Big Brother is that she votes with the group at first, so she had to go with Janelle.
Yep.
This means by a vote of 9-5, Janelle has received the most votes and is therefore banished from the game.
Yeah, no stray votes this time. I was kind of waiting for someone to like throw votes somewhere.
Honestly, I thought it would have been so funny if MJ or Shereé threw a vote.
I would have thought Kevin would have gotten votes somewhere, but no, it's just between Dan and Janelle. I feel like it makes sense. It was like those were the two names that were thrown out. Let's not overcomplicate things, but yeah, Janelle ends up going.
It is then time for her to reveal if she is a faithful or traitor. And she says, much like Big Brother, she played a very competitive game, but just like in Big Brother, she was loyal and honest, so she is a faithful.
Yeah, and I love the way she just like storms out of there. She's like, this is ridiculous.
I know. That's so good. Bergie then congratulates them on trusting the traitors, and Shereé says she went by her actions and didn't go by anything else.
Okay, but like Janelle's actions was wanting to get a shield, like literally almost 3 rounds in a row, which is very much not the behavior of a traitor. And like Janelle was like actively like throwing out names while Dan wasn't. Like, what do you mean by her actions? Like, what is she? I don't know what she's saying.
I know.
But like, also like I said, Bergie, kind of a king for this, kind of a king for like stepping up and saying what needed to be said. Like I said, Bergie's kind of like getting his spotlight, and I'm kind of here for it.
He is. It's very iconic.
Oh yeah.
So MJ says this was her first mistake, and Kevin says he let her down that route.
No, she let herself down that route. She could have easily shut it down. At least she's honest.
Dan says if they wrote his name down, he understands, and it's all good.
I mean, of course they wrote your name down. Like, that's not much you can say now.
Bergie says the traitors did such a good job of convincing all the faithfuls in the room that Janelle is a traitor.
Yep. Like I said, Bergie is like really showing that like he's someone that's not to be messed with. Like he very much seemed like he was just going to be like the nice guy, but like if you vote in the wrong direction and he's like very adamant that you are, I mean, you really don't want to cross him. And I feel like we're going to see a very different Bergie in the next few episodes.
Oh yeah. Dan says he just dodged a bullet by diverting votes away from him and onto Janelle. He's won a season of Big Brother, has been resurrected from his own funeral, and that round table was harder than both combined.
Okay, yes, but I don't think Dan really is responsible for Janelle going. It really is just Janelle throwing out like Sandra and CT. Like that's
it was her being super messy.
Yeah, which is what Janelle does. That's just like how that's what tends to happen. And that's why that's why I sadly just don't have a ton of confidence in her when she plays these games, because she usually ends up fucking up somehow.
He then sits with Peter, Trishelle, Sandra, Kevin, and Bergie, who are all telling him to speak up more, and Dan says he will. If he survives tonight and get here in the morning, he will take a shot tomorrow, and Bergie says he has one shot tomorrow, and his name on the chalkboard until he pulls the rig.
No, the trigger.
Oh, until he pulls the trigger. I love the typo. Until he pulls the trigger, and Dan says he would love to see the look on all their faces if he is murdered tonight.
Well, you're not gonna be, so. But I love Bergie just being so direct. Like, I am writing your name down if you don't do something tomorrow. Because, I mean, he knows he can do it. He has the shield. Like, this is generally such good gameplay. Because, like, this is, especially since he thinks that Dan's a traitor at this point, he's, like, very much, he's like, deliberately trying to antagonize him here. So he'll try to, like, banish him or try to murder him. But he knows it's not going to work. So he's literally just going to say, like, the worst thing he possibly can, just to like fully expose Dan. Like it's honestly really genius the way this is like turning out.
Oh yeah, it's so good. Kate catches up on how some of the banished and murdered faithfuls ended up going. She is especially bummed she didn't get to meet Ekin-Su. She says she wouldn't take a drink from Parvati like she just offered, kind of hinting that she may think she's a traitor.
Yeah, Kate seems to have good read. She's only been in the house for like 5 minutes and she already seems to like catch on to things. So
I know.
I feel like I said, I think we generally might see a different Kate this season. I think this is going to be a Kate that, because she's not constantly like getting heat, I think actually might be somewhat level-headed. So we'll see.
Kate is a little surprised they aren't doing better, and now they're looking at her for help, and she's just trying to stifle laughter and thinks this is a comedy.
Yeah, like, what is she supposed to know? She hasn't been watching.
Peter talks to Kevin, Bergie, and John, and assures John the three of them are good with him, and tells them the truth about who won the shield. And it was to give a huge cover of protection, and that 3 of those people are his suspects. And if it's blocked because they are protected, it will be one of those 3 for sure, which he already thinks, but now that confirms it.
This is the group that I think we need to worry the most about, to be honest with you. Like I said,
yeah, Peter, Kevin, and John, and Bergie.
Peter and Bergie are in such a good position right now, especially now having Trishelle on their side. You're going to have CT. Like, this is the group that I think, you know, I've seen people on Twitter say the Faithfuls can win the game. This is why the Faithfuls can easily win this game, because, I mean, if they're solid, especially since all of them just voted Dan, it's like they're not going to change their votes. So I just feel like this, if you're worried about any Faithfuls, these are the ones you need to worry about.
Oh yeah, it's like honestly just like a really iconic alliance. Even though I'm not like, I mean, I love everybody. Like, if it's the only one I'm not a huge fan of, like I said, is Trishelle. But I mean, I am here for this though, for sure.
Like,
even though,
I would much rather take this than. And listen, I love a good I love Shereé steamrolling the game. We love Shereé so much, but I will much rather take a group of faithfuls that like tries to take a shot and is actually somewhat successful at doing it. And it's not just due to the actions of a traitor fucking up, than what we got in season 1, where the faithfuls were just clueless the entire time.
Exactly. Like, even though I basically came in rooting for just like the Big Brother Survivor people mainly, just because I love them. But I mean, I pretty much like everybody.
Yeah. I mean, like I said, aside from like Shereé and Kevin and MJ, these are a much better group of faithfuls. Like they definitely know
Oh
what
yeah,
they're doing. The ones that
definitely.
are left, at least. Some of the other
Oh
ones, not so much, but the ones that are left, they know what they're doing.
yeah. Peter says he would love to sit there in breakfast and watch the Traitors walk in, realizing they have the murder blocked because they fell into the trap.
Well, that might end up happening. We'll see.
We'll see. Kate assures them all that since Janelle is gone, she will be taking her room, which I thought was really funny.
Yeah, that was great. She's like, well, she's not here anymore. So like, what room am I supposed to take? I thought that was a
Yeah.
great moment. All right. So we get to the Traitors turrets, and this is really where things start to get spicy. Cause listen,
Oh yes.
we knew Peter had this plan in motion. I didn't know if it was actually going to be somewhat relevant. Well, let's talk about what ends up going down here. Because Dan says he let Phaedra and Parvati have the last 2 murders. So now he's going to complete defensive mode to 100% aggressive mode. He really needs to convince them to let him murder whoever he wants to tonight, which in theory is not a bad idea. You know, he kind of needs to control what happens here. But, you know, maybe not the best direction. So they're all still reeling from the previous day. Phaedra tells Dan that he has got to be ready because he's still in the hot seat, and he says he can fix by being more vocal. She says his vocal has to make sense. It can't just be he's going to wait until he's sure, because that's not working anymore. Parvati asks who he will put out as a name to be more vocal, and he says he will sleep on it tonight. So he literally isn't telling them. Do you think this is implying he's going for Phaedra? Is that what you think he's going to do?
Oh, I can see it because I don't see him going for Parvati. I think
No.
if anything, he would probably throw Phaedra under the bus, which would probably shock everybody.
Considering that Parvati just vouched for him in the way that she did, she's probably the person that's like keeping him safe at this point.
Yeah, he needs her.
No incentive to go for Parvati, like zero incentive. There's all the incentive to go for Phaedra. So,
oh yeah,
especially considering, you know, she just murdered somebody that was not in his best interest, and, you know, everything that happened with Parvati. Like, it definitely makes sense to do that. I don't think it's going to work, but I think that's probably what he's going to do. So they say they both tell him he's already doing the same thing. Phaedra says there's only 2 people left. He needs to get his suit ready because if he plays like this, she will be embarrassing him himself. She will be embalming him herself. And he asks if this is the round table or a traitor's turret. Yeah, I mean, he's really like getting confronted here. And Parvati says they're just giving him some mild encouragement. He says it's not his first rodeo. Phaedra says he needs to act like it isn't because they all know that. So Dan tells them they will have a little issue tonight and asks if they have any inkling for who has the shields. And Parvati brings up what Peter told them, and they deduce that he's lying because that would make the most sense, you know. And they say it wouldn't make sense for him to tell Dan. And Parvati thinks they need to murder someone who wasn't in the group today. Dan says that he really needs this murder. It may be rolling the dice, but they have to take out Bergie because he said there's no way he wasn't going to write his name down. He knows they're both tied with him, so he's falling like literally right into his trap here. Like Bergie said exactly what he needed to get Dan to vote for him, and I can't believe Dan fell for it like as quickly as this, especially because he thinks.
I know.
Because here's the thing that doesn't make sense. Like if you think they're lying, it's either Bergie or Trishelle or Kevin and or Kevin and Shereé. Like that's what you need to worry about. So just don't vote for any of them. Because he talks about how Sandra and MJ are both a waste. Parvati says that it should be John, and he says he'd rather roll the dice on Bergie. And Parvati mentions that John voted for him tonight, which, yeah, John's definitely someone to worry about in that sense. And John is someone that the faithfuls are like trying to scoop up. We've seen it now twice now. Phaedra says that he's very calculated. She doesn't think he'd vote for him again if he was able to have the correct conversation and interaction with him. So either they are to play it safe and take out Sandra, John, or MJ, which he thinks are all wastes, or roll the dice on Bergie. Phaedra says that she loves her Burgalicious, and Parvati says that she's just a little nervous about the murder. And I mean, this should just be a sign to Dan, like, just listen to Parvati. Just listen to Parvati. Let's not go for Bergie. Let's just, you know, murder John. You know, that's probably the best way to go about this. It's completely random. It's not something to worry about. Phaedra says that she can't believe she's agreeing to this murder, but at the end of the day, she's a team player. So if that's the consensus, they should just let the chips fall in the hay. Dan says that he feels very confident that Bergie doesn't have a shield, and this will either win him the game or make him lose the whole thing. So, yeah, it seems like they are going through with murdering Bergie. It's not going to work out. It's obviously going to be blocked. And, yeah, I mean, do you think that this was the right move for Dan, for him to go for Bergie, or do you think he should have just listened to Parv?
I mean, obviously, like, we don't know what's going to happen because obviously it was a cliffhanger, but I'm hoping
I think it's pretty clear what's going to happen based on what Phaedra said.
I mean, yeah, but also, like, I hope Parv can convince him to be like, yeah, let's just go for John. Makes it easiest. It makes the most sense this round.
Yeah.
And then go for Bergie another time. Like, go for Bergie at the round table, per se.
I mean, no, I don't think it would make sense to go for Bergie at the round table because he's basically a confirmed faithful at this point.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I don't think no one suspects he's a traitor.
Yeah, we'll see.
So, like, I think the thing is, like, yes, you can always, like, if you're a good enough traitor, you can spin it where you can kind of put it on anyone. But with the way things are shaking out, you know Peter's not a traitor. You know Kevin's not a traitor. You know that, John isn't a traitor. You know Bergie isn't a traitor. Like, those are 4 right there that have basically been almost confirmed that they're not, just based on how they've been voting, based on how they've been playing the game. Shereé's not a traitor. So, like, there really aren't that many options left at this point. People are going to try to throw out CT, try to throw out Sandra. So it really just does come down to the fact that, like, I think going for a John made a lot more sense here, but it doesn't seem like that's what's going to happen. It is also worth noting why I think that it is pretty confirmed he's going to go for Bergie. If you look at the trailer for next week's episode, everyone's at the round table. There's nobody missing. So yeah,
that's true.
It also, I mean, it could be an editing trick, but I don't think the editing is that. I don't think they have that kind of skills, but maybe they do. I don't know.
Yeah, it's like they made it with AI.
No, that's not what I'm saying. I'm talking about how it's like they just digitally removed, like they digitally kept somebody that wasn't actually there.
We'll see.
Is what I was trying to say. Not AI, but so let's get to the postmortem here. Quite a bit to talk about with this one. So we get to Tamra, and Dan says that he looked at Tamra in this game as a very intelligent player, someone who is very perceptive, will call people out on the spot, and it's really the first time in the game where he felt he made a huge mistake in agreeing to this murder. He looked at her as a huge personality from Housewives, but he thinks that she listened and was very intelligent, so he hopes she doesn't think he's the one who murdered her, since he was the one who didn't want it to happen. And again, like I said, I think this was a big mistake for Dan. I think you just kill Peter there. Like, that's what they need to do, was go for Peter, but Phaedra was never gonna go for Peter. So Parvati says they all decided to murder Tamra because there was a theory floating in the house that one of the housewives had to be a traitor. So Phaedra wanted to get the suspicion out of her, so murdering Tamra dispelled that. Again, amazing move for Phaedra. Like, this is the kind of like the move that like can win her the game. Like, if she's at the end, this is very much a good reason why. This is like the only time she could have gotten any heat, and this prevents her from that ever happening. So
definitely.
She says the castle is much quiet now without Tamra being in the house. She had a fighting spirit, was sassy, spoke her mind, and that was always fun to have around. I don't know if that's the case now that Kate's there, but yes. So Phaedra says that Tamra is a very vocal player. The people who make the most noise bring the most attention to themselves. So she thought it would be a good idea, a good shakeup that would cause confusion. She thinks that she's a social butterfly and is very likable and attractive and someone people liked having around. So she knows her way around a castle or a party. So Tamra then says that she didn't expect to be murdered. The thought didn't even enter her mind. Her name had never been brought up at a round table, and nobody had ever questioned her. And to go into the confessional and see it, she was shocked. She noticed the traitors were killing off those that were vocal. So she thinks if she went in there, it was nice and sweet and charmed them and got to know each of them individually, they would have think of her not just as a castmate, but a friend. And then after getting information and they trusted her, she'd go in and annihilate things. She'd never been on Big Brother or Survivor or anything like that. So she knows how to slice a bitch and can do that all day. And the thing is, she had a really nice outfit the day she got murdered, with hair looking really good and color in her face again. But now she's dead. So she's never going to get to show it to the castle. Just wear it on finale. There's your thing. You just wear it on the reunion. You know, that's how you can make up for that. So,
for sure.
There's a moment where she then asks them, this is like literally right at the end. I don't know if you caught this, but like she asks them what postmortem means, and they say post-death, and she tells them to rub it in her face.
Oh, it was hilarious.
So I guess we'll just give our final thoughts on Tamra. And my answer is I don't have that many thoughts on Tamra. I think that she was fun for when we had her. Her reads were always off. She always was pretty much accusing the wrong people. I was kind of here for her rivalry with John. I was kind of here for her rivalry with Kevin. It kind of sucks that it was like short-lived and things like that. But I do think Tamra is the kind of character where it's like, she's really good early on in the game, but I think the more that she went on, it's like, okay, is Tamra going to have really anything else to offer? I think she was in the Shereé spot where it's like she was going to be safe. She was going to get to the end. I don't think there was anything to really worry about, but I think Shereé is now taking that spot from Tamra, where I think Shereé would have been the one to get murdered, but I think now it's, Tamra, Shereé took that spot from her. So I don't really have that much to say about Tamra. I think she was fun from when we had her, but overall pretty ineffective in the grand scheme of things.
Yeah. Like she was fun to watch for sure. And like at first, like for a while, I thought she was just gonna be like an underdog or like a dark horse, who makes and like just the social girl who makes it far. But I mean, this is a very good move, and she was fun to watch. Like, yeah, her little her petty rivalry with John and her rivalry with Kevin was just really funny, very fun to watch, hilarious. But yeah, I mean, I'm not mad that she left. Like, I like her, but I mean, I do prefer other people more than her.
Yeah,
but I mean, I did enjoy her a lot though.
It's more so just I don't understand why Dan and Parvati agreed to the murder other than they just were going to say yes to anything that Phaedra proposed, which was the wrong move, honestly.
So getting into Janelle, Phaedra says Janelle was a reality TV oracle who knew the resume of everyone in the house, so while she loved talking to her, she was cutthroat. She was a strong competitor and a leader, but in this environment, in order to be a successful leader, you have to lead with a certain amount of softness and not be harsh because it just doesn't work in this environment.
Yep.
Parvati feels Janelle was a very dangerous faithful who was putting pieces together and making plans to figure out who the traitors were and was incredibly ferocious.
Yeah, and I do want to get back to what Phaedra's saying. I mean, I agree. I think unlike other games, the Traitors really is a game where if you are more soft-spoken, if you are more just kind of social and you're not really doing a lot of crazy shit, it actually works a lot better for you. And I think that's why it's working out so well for Phaedra, because the only time she's gone angry is when it had to do with housewives. And that makes sense because that's her network. She cares about them. That's the only time she's really shown any sort of anger, any sort of like messiness or anything like that. And so I think that she's definitely onto something where it's like, the more calm you are in this game, the more you will succeed. So
exactly.
I think we've seen that especially this season from like most of the people that are out. Like basically all of them have gone because they just overplayed.
Oh yeah, for sure. Dan says they played a game together before, so he knows how she operates and she knows how he does. But she got a little frantic, and just like last time this happened, he had to vote her out, and he couldn't save her. And in the situation, it had to be her over him. He's used to playing with her, but others aren't, and talks about how ruthless she was with the shields in both missions. And he's used to that Janelle and her competitive self, but a lot of other teammates didn't love how she played in the game. And he thinks it really hurt her in trying to gather some pull at the round table.
Yeah, I mean, we really concentrate a lot on Dan here. And yeah, I mean, it makes perfect sense for him to go for her, like voting her out, I get. But again, I think when Peter asked him to give a name, he should have said, I'll tell you after the round table. I think that would have been a lot better. But
I know he should have.
Because that also keeps Bergie from saying, well, of course you're going to say Janelle because she's now on to you. So yeah, good move to vote out Janelle. Not a good move to say, oh, she's the one I'm the most suspicious of.
Yeah. Janelle says she is a good gamer, but she isn't a mastermind who manipulates and lies, but she knows when people are being real with her and tries to be open and honest. And so she always wanted a little suspicion on her, not too much, but wanted to keep it out there. And she'd get murdered anyway because she's a huge target and a very dangerous faithful. She says the shields fit into her being a suspect because she feels people who are probably traitors like Sandra were putting her name out there to take a suspicion off of them. And she told them There's no way a traitor would put their game out there and go for a shield. They will hang back and do nothing because all they have to do is murder the faithfuls.
Yeah, and again, she's not wrong. Like, I think it doesn't make sense to keep just like throwing out names constantly if you're a traitor. So that should have told them, like, oh no, she's just a really messy faithful.
Mm-hmm. Oh, she thinks it was turning on her when she saw MJ's and Phaedra's eyes, and she had been manipulated. She feels she was banished because the housewives are being played and don't know what the hell they're doing, as well as MJ.
She's not wrong.
And no matter what, and no matter how many times she tried to tell them, they just weren't picking up what she was putting down. She feels like Dan should have been banished instead of her, and it's fine. He isn't, but he isn't. But the good thing is his name is out there, so he's fucked. And she hopes her advice faithful can carry on, and the people who she was working with, Bergie, Peter, Trishelle, and John, actually have some strength, and she's given them skill and information. And she feels like this season the faithfuls can actually win because she's really laid it out for them. And if Kate stays in the game, she will be a huge benefit if she is a faithful because she has the experience and she can be a great replacement for her to really go after the traitors, and the faithfuls can actually win the season.
Yeah, I mean, I do agree with her. I think the faithfuls can absolutely win the season, especially if Peter, and John stick around, and you got Bergie there as well. Like, they're in the best spot right now, probably, especially having that solidified. Seems like an alliance, but we don't know if it's an alliance because we thought there was going to be alliances in this episode, and nobody really stuck to them, so we don't really know. I do think though Peter and Bergie are like absolutely still voting for Dan. No question about it. John also, I think, no question about it. Same with Trishelle. I think those are 4 people right there that are kind of locked in terms of how they're voting. So it really is just going to come down to who can Dan get? Who can Dan get to rally the troops? Who can he get on his side? I don't know if he has a lot of pull right now, but we'll really have to see. Any final thoughts on Janelle before we talk about what's going to happen next week?
Well, I've always loved her as a player. Like, I loved her when I watched BB6 and 7.
Mm-hmm.
And I've always loved her as a player because she was very fun to watch and everything. And her competitive side is just very entertaining.
Yeah.
Obviously, she's not the best strategist at all. But she is good socially and physically. And
not the
she was
best is an understatement. It's just fucking horrible.
Yeah. She was such but she's such a fun player to watch because, like, I wanted to see her just keep winning shields. Like, that would have been such a fun arc for her.
Oh, yeah.
But she obviously did what she does best, overplays and fucks herself. But, like, overall, like, I really enjoyed watching her, and I was so happy she was on the season.
Yeah, I was really surprised to see Janelle go out here. I really thought that, like, just based on what we were seeing, especially in the last episode, that, like, she probably was going to make it decently far. She seemed like, she was kind of similar to Sandra, where, like, she knew that Dan was a traitor, but, like, didn't really want to say anything. But she kind of played the way I expected her to, where it's like Janelle's been doing this a lot lately, where it's like she starts off pretty good. She's in a decent spot, and then she just, like, does something to actively hurt herself. And that's exactly what she did here. I think what she needed to do was really push the Dan narrative, but, like, not be as forceful with it. Really just push it to, like, the people that are on her side, like a Bergie, like a Peter, like a Trishelle, like a John, the people that are actively going to vouch for her, which Bergie did. The others could have as well. But I think if she really puts that out there and she really doesn't try to, she doesn't throw out CT's name, she doesn't throw out Sandra's name, you can push it to MJ, but MJ's just going to do what she's going to do anyway. It doesn't really matter that if she tells MJ or not, because MJ is just going to, like, do the same thing and do the thing that doesn't make sense for her game. But I think in general, like, she just really ended up fucking herself. I think she just played way too hard. I think she's under pressure, and she just needed to stick to Dan, and she just needed to say that, like, Dan's a traitor. Dan's someone we need to get out. All of you are going to be incorrect again. Like, I think that she was saying the right things up until she threw CT and Sandra under the bus. But those are, like, 2 people that, like, weren't probably going to vote for her. They were probably going to vote for Dan, but, like, once she came for them, that was pretty much it. So I think that's probably what did it. But overall, like I said,
she just screwed herself in that sense, sadly. But
yeah, she really did. But like I said, she's a legend. She proved that she's a legend this season, especially competitively. I mean, her going for the shields and the way she did was crazy.
it was wild.
Yeah, it really was. But overall, I'm not too surprised that she went out the way she did. I was surprised she went out as early as she did, but I'm not surprised she went out like in the way that she did. So yeah.
Same.
Okay, so I think the real question I have for you, and I'm going to answer this question myself, is do you think Dan can get out of this? Because he's probably the person most likely to go next week.
I mean, we'll see. Because I mean, it would be very spicy if he actually survives again.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, if he can really like pull off the right words and like pull off a move, then that's just, oh my god. Like, if he can pull something off, like honestly, he deserves to make it to the finale.
I just think the issue for him right now is who does he get on his side? Because he has Parvati, obviously. Parvati is going to, him and Parvati are in lockstep of each other right now.
I could see him keep getting like CT and Sandra on his side for sure.
The only way he gets CT, no, not over Phaedra. If he's throwing Phaedra under the bus, Phaedra is the reason CT is there. CT could have easily been murdered, and Phaedra's been the person that's like keeping him there. He's not going to vouch for Dan over Phaedra.
See.
I think Sandra might. I think Sandra would definitely vouch for Dan over Phaedra. But I think if he can get Kate, that would also be cool. But it seems like Kate is like very much like, oh, you won everything. I want you out of here. So I think that might be tough. So yeah, I really just don't know. Like, I think that there's too many people that are against him. John, Bergie, Peter, especially are against him. And because they're in control, Kevin also is probably going to jump on it. But knowing Kevin, he's probably going to vote the wrong way.
Also, don't forget, remember when like Peter said in one of the things, he literally said that he is close to Dan, but he's throwing out his name.
I mean, yeah.
It's like what if they just become a duo again? That'd be funny.
But why would that happen?
I mean, I don't think it would, but it'd be very spicy.
That would basically make everything he just did like completely pointless if he did that, because like the only reason to keep a traitor around is if you feel like you're safe with that person. And what Peter just did by voting out Dan, he's not going to be safe with Dan anymore. So it doesn't make it like he's actively trying to fuck Dan over, thinking he's a traitor. So no, I don't think it makes sense for Peter to do that. I think Peter is very much in with Bergie, in with Trishelle, in with John, in with Kevin. I think he's going to stick with them. And like I said, I think if he's able to continue doing what he's doing, the faithfuls might win the game. We'll have to see, but I think it very well could end up happening. Sandra also has been a very good faithful, not always voting correctly, but always having a lot of pull. I think Kate, like I said, her coming in there is not great for Dan.
Sandra's just completely like in the middle.
Yeah, she really is. MJ is the question mark here. Is MJ going to do what's logical and actually vote out Dan and realize that, oh, I was correct about Dan? Or is she going to keep doing what she's doing and second guess herself and vote the way that she's not supposed to? And then Kevin ends up going. Who knows? I think there's definitely a possibility that Dan can survive, but it's very small. It's very small. Like, I got to be honest. It's very small. He doesn't have the time to pull off.
I mean, I will say every episode's been very different and unpredictable, so we never know.
Yes, but the thing is, in this particular position, like, this is like Cody or Christian bad levels of like, you've been detected. Like, this is that bad. Like, not saying that Dan's as bad as them, but like, this is as bad as
Dan's actually good.
Yeah, he's not as bad as them, but like, it's in the sense where it's like, we know you're a traitor and you're probably going. Like, it just kind of feels that way with Dan. Like, it feels like that's what this is all building towards, especially with the emphasis we got on like what Peter was trying to do. So I really don't know. I'd love to say that like, oh, Dan's got this, he's gonna be great. Never underestimate Dan Gheesling. Like, never underestimate him.
Oh, yeah.
I just don't think he has the numbers to pull something off, but we'll have to see.
Yeah.
Especially if he throws out Phaedra, who was a big reason as to why he just stayed. I don't think it's gonna work out, but we'll have to see what happens. But yeah, other than that, I think that's pretty much all we needed to say. It's going to be very exciting to see what happens. I will say once again, I've seen people say it. I really just don't see Parvati turning on Dan. I just don't see it
I don't
happening.
either.
I don't think it makes
No.
sense for her to do that. I think that people will know that she's a traitor if she does something like that. I just don't think Parvati's going to do it. I don't see her turning on Dan here. So yeah, I've seen people say that she might do that. I just don't see it happening. Oh, one thing I do want to ask you is, if the Traitors if Dan goes, right? Like if Dan goes the next episode and the Traitors are recruiting people, who do you think they're most likely to recruit right now?
I could see CT or Sandra.
Maybe I could see them potentially doing that. I think CT or Sandra's a good option, but I personally think they're going to go with someone like completely just like unassuming. So maybe like an MJ, maybe like a Kevin.
Yeah,
Like I could see them doing that. I could also just see them being like, you know what, Kate's here. Let's just recruit Kate. Let's just do that.
That would be funny.
So,
Yeah. That'd be
I don't
cool.
know. I don't know if Kate would be a good traitor. I feel like she'd be kind of bad, but
I don't think they would recruit like Peter. I don't think they would.
Definitely not. Peter and Bergie are off the table. Like that's not happening.
Also, John and Trishelle are off the table too. I mean, Trishelle maybe. Trishelle maybe.
Trishelle is the only one that I don't think they're gonna like. She's like a confirmed faithful, but I do think that Trishelle being a traitor does not hurt them in any way. So I think the others, bad for them, not a good idea. Yeah. So yeah, because then they start taking shots at like people that Phaedra and Parvati have worked with. So we'll see. Exactly. But yeah, other than that, I think that's pretty much it. Anything we want to plug before we wrap this up here? Also, this was way longer than I thought it would be.
I know.
Had a lot to talk about.
Really, the only thing we have, is obviously, Deal or No Deal Island. We're gonna be doing soon.
It's gonna be amazing. I can't wait. It's gonna be the next great show.
It's gonna be so funny.
I can't wait.
We are gonna be watching the Trust or binging the Trust soon, so we're gonna probably do a season review of that.
Probably next weekend.
Yeah. We'll see, or maybe even this week, because it's only 8 episodes. We could probably binge it pretty quick.
Yeah, that's true. We'll see.
And then, other than that, just try and catch up on our season reviews, and then Survivor and Big Brother Canada when those are back. But yeah, really, this is like the only like weekly show right now.
Yeah, that's pretty much it. But yeah, Survivor is going to be starting up next month, so we got that. Probably going to be doing a cast assessment with people. We'll see. And then BB Can as well will be starting up eventually. I think March 10th is when they said, so we'll have to see.
Oh wait, also, speaking of, go back to our Traitors draft for the season and see who we have left.
Oh yeah, let me check that real quick. We did that like forever ago, but I can
before we end the podcast, we should take a look.
Yeah, we want to do a little draft update because it is kind of getting down to it. We only have 5 episodes left, so which is kind of crazy.
I know, that's insane.
Because the 11th episode is just the reunion, so I don't really count that. It's like Survivor. I don't really count the reunion. Even though Traitors is more a reunion than, Yeah. Okay. So I'm going to share my screen real quick. Okay. So I had Parvati, Janelle, MJ, Bananas, CT, I think. Yeah, that's CT.
No, you're reading mine.
Oh, all right. Yeah. Read yours then.
I have Parvati still. I lost Janelle.
You have MJ.
Oh yeah, I have MJ.
That's CT.
I had Bananas and I have CT. I lost Tamra.
Yeah, Tamra and Trishelle. Yeah, you have Trishelle still.
I have Trishelle still. I have Peter. I have John King.
Yeah, you lost Ekin.
Oh yeah, Ekin I lost, and then I have Phaedra and Bergie.
Yep. So then I have. So you have the people most likely to win that are faithfuls. So that's great. And then you have the most likely traitor to win. That's not Dan. Unfortunately, mine's not looking so great right now.
I have both. I have 2 out of 3 faithful or traitors.
Yeah. Oh wait, no, we both have Phaedra because it was 21 people.
Oh yeah.
So if Phaedra wins, we both win, I guess.
True. And also with Kate being in, why don't we just make her like we can just have her on both of our drafts too?
I mean, I guess unless you want to switch out Phaedra for Kate, then I can just take Phaedra and then you can Kate.
I mean, I think it just make more sense because since we already have our drafts made, we can just have like Kate get onto both of ours.
That's true.
Just to make it fair.
Okay, so I have Sandra, Dan, Kevin, and then I have Shereé, Phaedra, like I said, and that's it. I have like nobody left. That's great.
Oh no.
Because
So
I don't have Peppermint, I don't have Deontay, I don't have Max, and I don't have Larsa. So
oh my god.
And I don't have Marcus. I don't have either of the showmans. So
yeah, I literally have like mostly everybody.
Why did I draft the showmans? Why did I do that? That was so stupid.
I have no idea. I think we were also we were picking kind of randomly for some too.
Yeah, I know. This is funny because we never even watched the Canada one.
Not yet, but we will.
Yeah. So I think you have the better chance of winning right now, safe to say, because I'm it's kind of looking a little dire on my end. Unless somehow Kevin pulls through, unless Dan pulls through, or Kevin and Shereé make it to the end.
Wait,
with Sandra.
Didn't you say you have Sandra?
Yeah, I have Sandra, who's like, I think she's probably making it to the end, but Kevin,
I can see Sandra.
Shereé probably making it to the end. But we'll see. We'll see. And like I said, we both have Phaedra. So if Phaedra wins, then I guess we both win. But
if Phaedra and Kate win, we both win.
Yeah. Well, Kate would have to be with the other faithfuls unless she's a traitor. So we'll see. But yeah, other than that, that's it for this video. Hope you guys enjoyed it. As always, comment down below. Let us know what you guys are thinking of the Traitors season 2. Like I said, just an incredible season of television. It's just really just the gift that keeps on giving. Every week, I just get excited for it. And I cannot wait to see how it all wraps up. It's like must-see events, reality TV. I can't stress that enough. If you're not watching, go ahead and watch. Why are you watching this podcast? If you're watching, we just spoiled everything. But anyway, that's it for this video. Well, I realized that as I said that, like, I mean, if they're not watching, then they're not watching this. So I would hope not, unless they just don't care. But anyway, I'm rambling now, as I usually do. But anyways, remember, couples who podcast together, stay together. We'll see you guys later.